Okay, pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on Tuesday, February 10th, 2026, the committee is commencing its study of science in the Canadian agriculture and the closure of research centres. I'd like to welcome our witnesses. Thank you for being here to join us. We have the Deputy Minister, Lawrence Hansen. We have the Associate Assistant Deputy Minister, Andrew Goldstein, and the Assistant Deputy Minister, Mr. Legacy. Hello and welcome back, Deputy Minister. Welcome back. And we'll start with a 5-minute presentation and open it up for questions.
Mr. Chair, merci, Monsieur le Président, et merci pour me donner l'occasion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to discuss decisions made at Agriculture and Agri-Foods Canada as part of our review of spending.
Associate Assistant Deputy Minister of Science and Technology, and Alain Lagacé, our Assistant Deputy Minister of our Corporate Management Branch. The comprehensive expenditure review was undertaken to restore government spending to sustainable levels by identifying spending efficiencies and focusing on core mandates. As members will be aware, the outcomes of the review process were outlined in Budget 2025. With regard to AAFC specifically, the department was required to reduce our operational spending, programming, and our science footprint in order to find $154.7 million in savings by 2028-2029. To achieve these savings, we are making reductions across the entire department to reflect the objectives of the review, including finding efficiencies and directing available resources to areas with the greatest impact on core objectives. In
messages to departmental staff on January 22nd and 23rd of this year, I communicated the impacts of these decisions to our workforce and departmental activities. In the 2 weeks since, our focus has been on communicating directly with our employees and our partners who will be affected by these decisions.
These reductions are, as I noted, taking place across the entire department. We recognize and understand that the decision to wind down some of our research facilities and research farms have been a matter of specific interest and concern. I'd like to put these closures in a broader context. The department has an operating budget of roughly $800 million. Our annual expenditures associated with science and research facilities account for about $300 million of that total. Of that $300 million, $90 million is spent on corporate support, such as maintenance and utilities. This is not money that goes to science and research, but rather utilities, maintenance, and the other costs associated with maintaining 20 research development centers and 25 satellite centers. Not surprisingly, with the passage of time, these upkeep expenses go up and are accompanied by ongoing capital rust out. Faced with this reality, it was determined that it would be a much more efficient use of funds to consolidate science efforts in fewer facilities and prioritize science efforts that are most core to the department's mandate, rather than diverting more and more resources to operational costs and upkeep over time. As a consequence, we are closing 3 of our 20 research and development centers, those in Quebec City, Guelph, and Lacombe. We will also close 4 of our satellite farms in Scott, Indian Head, Portage la Prairie, and Napan. We are making every effort to support our affected employees through what is admittedly a challenging period. But I want to emphasize that AAFC will remain the largest agricultural science enterprise in the country and will continue to advance strategic and high-impact science with a focus on crops and horticulture, animal production, food processing, biodiversity, and environmental sustainability. I would also point out that the staffing reductions will result in a limited number in the actual number of research scientists working at AAFC. We estimate that the number of research scientists who will not remain in their current location or be offered an equivalent position elsewhere will be about 27. That is a little over 7% of our entire team of scientists. I would also note that at least half our reductions overall in the department are operational efficiencies and not program or science reductions. Nous allons continuer à investir.
We will continue to invest in science and strengthen collaborations with the industry, governments, academia, and other key stakeholders in Canada and around the world. We will continue to help producers protect their crops and boost their yields through the minor use pesticide program. We will continue to support food processing and food safety.
Be Canada's largest agricultural or research organization, with 17 research centres and research farmland across the country. Every province will continue to have at least one AAFC research centre, maintaining a strong national footprint while addressing both regional and national priorities. As well, AAFC's commitment to science excellence and sector partnership has not changed. We will continue to work with the provinces, territories, universities, colleges, producers, and private sector innovators. We can pool our talents and our resources to drive cutting-edge research, science, and innovation, avoid duplication with academia and the private sector, and gear resources towards science as opposed to operational cost. Mr. Chair, the decisions taken, difficult as they have been, do not diminish the department's commitment to supporting a growing agriculture sector through science and innovation. Rather, they are about ensuring that resources are directed where they can have the greatest impact in that mission. In every province across Canada, we will maintain and grow our collaborations with industry, academia, and international networks. Nous allons continuer à chercher de nouvelles occasions.
We will keep looking for new opportunities to leverage our shared resources here at home and around the world. And we will also continue to work with producers, partners, and others.
I want to thank the Chair for this opportunity. Myself and my colleagues will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First, for 6 minutes, Mr. Scheer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I am here to fight for the Indian Head Research Farm, facility that employs approximately 30 people full-time and many, many more during summer months and part-time workers. There's clearly no industry group that thinks that this is a good idea to shut this facility down. I mean, that has become overwhelmingly apparent. So I'd like to get right into some detailed questions. Can you tell me what you expect, what the department claims it will save from shutting down the Indian Head Research Center, research farm?
Yes, I do have. I have the number, and I don't know if you have it immediately in front of you. I know I do have it in another document of our operational costs. If you can just allow me one moment to bring that up, but I don't know if Alain, if you have it handy.
Yeah, total operating cost last year for Indian Head was $3.8 million. But just want to caution that there's some relocation of science. There's some costs that we will continue to incur because, as you probably know, the divestiture of such a site will take years. So 3.8 million is the total operating costs.
3.8 million operating costs. Did you look at any kind of assessment for how potentially upgrading key pieces of equipment or infrastructure at the site could result in year-over-year savings? For example, if you replace a heating system, you don't have to repair it as often. Was any kind of assessment done at the center to look for ways of reducing operating costs without closing down the farm?
Thank you, Chair. With regard to the member's question, I think even if we were to reduce our operating costs at that specific site, there would still be savings to be gained by seeking to do further consolidation, including moving some of this work to Saskatoon. And in fact, I will note that there were 2 research scientists on site at Indian Head, and one of them will in fact be moving to our R&D center in Saskatoon.
Was that a no? That there was no assessment done to see if costs could have been reduced while maintaining the overall viability of the site?
I don't think the overall, Chair, I don't think the overall viability of the site becomes a matter of if you can further invest. The answer is we have decided that the greatest level of savings and efficiency could come by consolidating our efforts elsewhere.
Some of the research, it says in the briefing note, will be moved to, for example, Outlook, Saskatchewan. Are you aware of the difference in soil conditions between Indian Head and Outlook, Saskatchewan?
Chair, we are aware that there are some variations in soil from place to place, but we are convinced that we can continue our science capacity even in slight variations in soil conditions. I would also note that we fund science that is done by others that can continue to be focused in specific areas.
It's not just slight variances. We're talking about major differences in the quality of soil, the pH balance, and especially the moisture. I mean, Indian Head is in a very, very special place in Saskatchewan. It is Class 1 soil. It consistently outperforms other regions on a consistent basis in terms of moisture. And the reason why that's important is because when you're doing multi-year studies on seed varieties and yields and responses to various conditions, having that kind of stability, knowing that you won't have to worry about a drought in year 3 or an early frost in year 5. That's the type of benefit that having a site like Indian Head has. And I have spoken to so many people. Nobody believes that you can replicate those types of conditions over multi-year periods at Outlook. So was there any kind of assessment in terms of the scientific integrity that will be lost by merging sites from relocating research from Indian Head to a place like Outlook?
I'll ask my colleague Andrew if he wants to add anything, but Mr. Chair, I will say we have sought to find these savings in a way that is most consistent with maximizing our science capacity and remaining it in place, and also, where there are specific issues, we will be continuing to look with our partners and others to do research. But Andrew, if you have anything to add, please.
Yes, I mean, every site does offer their unique properties, but we will still maintain 4 different sites across Saskatchewan, and we believe that can generate sufficient diversity to continue our programs.
Got a couple of minutes left, so I'll have to move very, very quickly. It looks like there will have to be capital investments at places like Outlook to create more storage facilities. Have you done any kind of assessment about the extra cost that you'll incur by this relocation? Because if we're talking about a savings of $3.8 million, if you have to spend millions more and just to move them to another location, there's not much savings there at the end of the day to the taxpayer.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is partly a stock and flow issue. Admittedly, the potential consolidation may or may not cause some further expenditures in some sites, but that's an immediate cost, whereas operating the 20 sites we have is a year after year cost.
It sounds like the answer is a no, that you haven't actually done an assessment on what the extra costs will be. I'm just looking at a few quick hits of what this government has funded. $8.5 million for a cricket factory that ended up going bankrupt. That came directly from AAFC. That's your department. I'm looking at $8.2 million for gender-just low-carbon rice in Vietnam. Can you tell me what the ROI what the return on that investment to Canadian producers and Canadian taxpayers was? I'm hearing from seed groups that are saying that it's going to take 2 or 3 years to get back up to where Indian Head is at in terms of the research. We're going to lose 2 to 3 years on crop varieties. That they estimate, these are seed groups, these are grower groups, say the estimated loss on that loss of years is $400 million. We're looking at $8.2 million for gender-just low-carbon rice, $8.5 million to a cricket factory, $400 million in lost economic activity, all to save purportedly $3.8 million on a research farm. How does this make sense to taxpayers or farmers?
Okay, we'll go next to the Liberals for 6 minutes. MP Dandurand.
Merci beaucoup, la députée.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us on this day of agriculture in Canada to talk about research in agriculture, which to me is a fundamental issue in terms of our capacity to feed the world. There's also a research center in my region, in my riding, the Sherbrooke Research Center, which is going to take over some of the research activities for the Quebec City Center, it would seem. We also hear that there could be some cuts there when it comes to jobs. You submitted a letter to the committee, and you mention recentering responsibilities to the fundamental criteria or mandates of AAFC. First of all, could you tell us what those are when it comes to the industry?
Absolutely. So I think, in terms of, some of the areas where we obviously feel that we most, there are some of the absolute core research areas will be in crop production and agronomy and plant breeding, which has been the core really of so much of growth in the agriculture sector. Continuing to have a key focus on animal production issues. Looking at, I think that will also be continuing to be important. I would say forage, there's a wide, and some of the elements we do on resilience in agriculture, including working with producers on issues such as cover cropping and rotation. I don't know, Andrew, if there's any you want to add.
I think for the center in Sherbrooke in particular will be a key part of our capacity to do swine research as well as dairy research.
Merci. Parmi les recherches.
Thank you. Among research that is carried out in Quebec, we'll be continuing on perennial plants. There's also a lot of research going on in my riding, and I'm wondering how the transition is going to be managed from the Quebec City Centre to other research centres, including when it comes to the research on perennial plants.
Merci, Monsieur le
Thank you, Chair.
The question. So this will be a process that does unfold over time where we'll be working directly with our employees, some of whom will be moving or transferring as a result of this. I think, what we're trying to do is make sure we give ourselves the space to do this in an orderly fashion, to be in full contact with all our research partners, and to do this in a way that is least disruptive as possible.
On vient en lien probablement avec des...
I'd like to come back to some questions that were asked earlier about climates that can vary from region to region. I think that there was interest in having research centers in all regions of Canada. So how is the geographic sharing of research centers going to happen going forward? Are you going to try and represent the most vast variety of climates possible in the country?
Yeah, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair.
Notre intention.
That is our intention. That is the reason why we are going to continue to have a center in each province.
Having a research farmland in every province of the country. Admittedly, it is not completely possible to cover every single place in the country, but I think we do believe we've rationalized in a way that doesn't compromise our scientific effort.
Merci.
Thank you. Over the past few years, and we'll also talk about prior governments here, where there were cuts to AAFC, I think that this is a long-term effect that is accumulating. There were investments in the last Liberal mandate, and we're seeing cuts again now. Can you please tell me how you see the future of research? Given the context of what's happened in the past years for the capacity for public research, where are we headed towards for the future? And what is your short-term, medium-term, and long-term visions for research?
Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to the committee member for her question. I would imagine that many members of this committee know that we began the process for the development of our next agreement with the provinces.
Percentage of our agricultural spending is actually covered under the existing SCAP agreement, and I will note that none of that was reduced in the context of CER. So our big focus on a go-forward basis is toward that next 5-year agreement that'll start in 2028, which furnishes such a large part of our science expenditures, and we continue to have, and we have every expectation that just as in the last framework, science and research spending will be a big part of that framework, and I know that's something that's supported by both the government and provincial and territorial partners.
Ça sort un peu de votre mandat, mais...
This goes a little outside of your mandate, but can you talk to us about private research and academic research in Canada as compared to public research?
Merci pour la question.
Thank you for the question.
That is a really important point to raise. Obviously, an effective science enterprise is not one in which public funds alone are spent. One of the things that we need to be doing and talking more to the sector about is what is required to drive additional private sector investment and how we actually collaborate and coordinate with universities and colleges and others. There's no benefit in multiple organizations spending research dollars on the same activity. It makes much more sense to kind of rationalize and organize. So much of our science work is already done in partnership with the sector, with the universities and so forth.
Okay, thank
That'll
you very
continue.
much. I'm going to go to the bloc. Mr. Lemire.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. Well, first of all, I think it's important to name the fact that the Bloc is against those cuts. And, of course, we would invite you to backpedal. What I find very interesting is to see such an important symbol as Andrew Scheer for the Conservative Party coming to the committee to take the floor. And I agree with his arguments. His arguments that say that in Saskatchewan, the acidity level of the oil is different from the acidity level in other regions. We have laboratories all across Canada. And my region in 2012 was affected when the Kapuskasing farm was closed, and that was under the Harper government. Jerry Ritz was ag minister. And then Alain Giguère was head of research for AAFC, and he's still head of operations. At the time, he said that the region's operations would be able to take over research and that these would be, they would be the best place to do so. So I would like to ask you a question following all of that. Given the current context, what are the products or the methods that are developed in Northern Ontario or in Témiscamingue since that research center was closed? That is a very concrete example of a farm that was closed, and we lost out on research for Northern region research, climate change, and clay-based agriculture. So can you give us an update on the research there, and are we going to repeat those mistakes elsewhere now?
Merci pour.
Thank you for the question.
Recognize that it will not. It is not possible to have a farmland at any kind of reasonably financially sound basis in every place in the country. And so the key is to make sure that we can, with available resources and wisely, do as much as we can and cover as much as we can. We are convinced we are still capable of doing that. These, because of the reductions we've made and the rationalizable doing. I cannot speak to specific issues or projects that have been done in Témiscamingue since the changes in 2012. At this point, I do know we continue to talk to researchers at the university about how to make sure we can try to find good ways to work in partnership. Andrew?
Just to add to that, we are maintaining our site in Normandin, which is in a northern part of Quebec, which will allow us to continue to do that northern type of research to maintain that diversity of our sites.
I'll stop you because that's a shortcut. It's great if you're in Lac-Saint-Jean or Normandin. That's a very different region from Abitibi-Témiscamingue. It's 800 kilometers away. It's closer to Kapuskasing in the north of Ontario. And these are research centers that reflect different biodiversities, different regions, and how important it is to have those decentralized centers. Mr. Hansen, you were there when we had a discussion with Minister MacDonald about are you going to invest in universities and research centers following these cuts? Is that really the department's intent to get that data through academic research instead? Because we can't forget how important, we can't do without this important data from agriculture.
I think and especially as we go forward, as we're thinking into our future science spending, I think these are all issues that we will seriously consider about if there are gaps that are emerging, if there are key gaps that are compromising the ability to grow the sector. Again, we are not only doers of research, we are funders of research, and the absence of a specific center operated by AAFC itself is distinct from the idea of being willing to fund science that might be of value in that place.
Jérémy Letellier, qui est président.
Jérémy Latelier is head of UPA in Montérégie, and there was a report that said that the United States invested 23 times more in risk capital for agricultural technologies and 8.5% more than here. Canada, if it was really concerned with research and development, there would be conditions that I think would be logical numbers, especially given that from one ocean to the other, the different agricultural realities are very difficult. I would like to note that 2 experimental farms were linked to AAFC's farms, Normandin and at Lac Saint-Jean, and also Saint-Augustin-de-Desmaures in the National Capital Region. So can you give us an update on these different factors in these farms? Are there going to be cuts for them as well?
Excuse me. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. I can begin, and perhaps my colleague Andrew can chime in.
Say in terms of like investment capital and research, this is something that is extraordinarily important, and government can be a part of that for sure. But one of the things that we are very focused on is how to deepen the pool of investment capital in place in the agriculture and agri-food space, because that will never solely effectively come from government. Andrew, I don't know if you would like to speak to any of those specific farms.
Yeah, la ferme à Saint-Augustin, c'est quelque.
The Saint-Augustin farm is land that we rent from Laval University.
At that site.
Merci.
Thank you. I will have 2 written questions, if it would be possible for you to respond to those. Did you carry out an analysis of the impacts of closing those research centers? If so, can you please submit that in writing to the committee? And also, in writing, the amounts that were invested in each of the research centers that have been closed, and break them down between what was spent in research and innovation and what was spent in the pay for administrative costs and employees. I think it would be very interesting to see how much was really spent in research.
To the Mr. Culkins, you have 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Coteau. Thank you, Chair. So I am the Member of Parliament for the riding of Ponoka-Didsbury, in which Lacombe Research Development Centre is located. It has been in operation for over a century, 118 years of trials. It is responsible for developing the first actual meat strain, the Lacombe hog, years and years ago, and it has done yeoman's work, and it is one of the more noteworthy research and development centres that Canada has in the agriculture umbrella. It's situated in Lacombe, right next to the provincial crop research station and the headquarters of Agriculture Financial Services Corporation, which services basically all of the agricultural financing needs for Alberta producers in the entirety of the province. It is a hub of agriculture for sure. Land values in that area are north of $1.5 to $2 million per quarter section, because it is some of the most productive land that Canada has to offer. The decision by the government to close that facility looks to be anything but a good idea. I can't find a single producer group, Western Crop Innovations, any producer group that thinks that shutting down the Lacombe Research and Development Centre is an intelligent idea, and that work, Mr. Hansen, can somehow continue on in Lethbridge or some other part, because the Lethbridge is prairie. This is parkland soil types, 2.5 feet of some of the richest black soil that Canada has to offer. Your department has got less than a 10% increase in budgets since 2015, and now you're being asked to have consequential cuts at the expense of producers, at the expense of agribusiness. And I'm supposed to believe that you're going to, what are you going to say to the producers and everybody in Central Alberta who relies on the research and development at that center, that they should just accept this and lay down, or is this decision reversible? Is this decision reversible, or is it set in stone?
Thank you, Chair, for the question, and thanks to the member. We are not reconsidering this decision. I do want to emphasize that the work that's done in Lacombe, in terms of we're looking at moving some of the, and I know you're going to talk about the region. I understand that, so to Lethbridge and to Swift Current, swine research being consolidated in Sherbrooke. There is of course the abattoir that's also in Lacombe. We do believe that there are other people we can partner with at other universities and move some of this work elsewhere. I will say that we will also recognize
Mr.
that as a
Hansen,
research
this time is
funding will
mine,
be
and I'm going to continue to ask you a question then, because Lakeland College is partnering with the Lacombe Research and Development Center. Were they consulted about losing their trials?
I cannot speak specifically to Lakeland. I don't know, Andrew, if you can, or if we'd have to.
I don't know.
We'd have to come back.
Okay. Did you talk to the provincial ag minister in Alberta about the trials and the shared research that's going on between the provincial research station and the federal research station on cereals?
So what I will say is that the process done under CER, like all elements of it, was advice that was conducted under the process of cabinet confidences. We were not actively consulting in advance. I will also say, though, that as we go forward, we'll be working with the industry, the province, and all these, and there are other options going forward that don't necessarily involve keeping a physical plant and presence in one place. There are still partnership routes and funding routes available beyond
You just
that.
upgraded the meats lab in Lacombe to a biosecurity level 2, and now you're closing it down. This looks like sloppy budget cutting to me with no forward thinking about what the actual impacts will be. How are you going to replace biosecurity level 2 in Lacombe?
I think some of what we need to be looking at doing here are partnering with actual research institutions who may be in a position to do some of these activities. I know Guelph is one, but we'll look at others. Again, I want to emphasize that our actual own physical plant and operations are distinct from our ability to find other ways to fund things where we are helping to do science, but we are not necessarily the custodians of equipment and land.
Are you suggesting then that you're just going to dispose of the buildings because you can't afford to operate the buildings? Are you suggesting that the government of Canada should get rid of all, like the one you're sitting in right now? This seems like a poor excuse to me, Mr. Hansen. Money is being spent right now to upgrade facilities for their scientific capability, not just general maintenance, and it's shut down. I don't understand the decision. Am I out of time, Chair?
10 seconds left.
Yeah. Anyway, the people, Mr. Goldstein, did you fly out to Lacombe and fire the 112 workers that were there in a 20-minute speech, refuse to take questions, and then leave? Because that's what I heard happened.
You can follow up afterwards. We'll go to MP Harrison. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to say it's a good day when everyone around the table agrees that we need to fight for research and innovation. And as we know, we've heard from expert witnesses, and we know that the #1 cause of rising food is climate change, and how critical data is for our producers to be able to combat climate change and still produce the high quality food that Canadians have come to depend on. So in that vein, do you believe the remaining research centres and farms will be able to provide the research needed for our producers when it comes to combating climate change, given how diverse our growing regions are in Canada?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. Yes, I do believe that is the case, and I will also note, independently of the research and science that's done related to the environment and sustainability at our research centers, the funding that is provided through the On-Farm Climate Action Fund, OFCAF, which is, helping farmers and producers to defray the costs of various kind of activities that are both good for the environment and also good for their own operations, such as cover cropping, rotational grazing. All these things are being funded and contribute to the department's commitment to working with producers and others to promote environmental sustainability.
Thank you. I have to say, in my office in the riding of Peterborough, I received many emails, not just from the producers and farmers within my riding, but across Canada with concerns to these cuts. And so you spoke a little bit about the $90 million in expenditures for maintenance. Is this the main reason for closing certain facilities? And if not, what was the main driver in choosing the facilities that would be closed?
Thank you for the question. through you, Chair, I would say that when asked to find savings, you do want to try to do it in such a way where you limit the actual impact on the science and research. And so, yes, I mean, if we want to be able to spend a higher percentage of available funding on science and research and less on overhead costs, that drives one towards consolidation in fewer sites. But these sites were the decisions we made in terms of which R&D centers, which farms were done with careful consideration. We recognize that, I don't think we had any illusions that there would not be concern about some of these, and that comes with any kind of reduction. But it was done rationally and with care and with recognizing that we wanted to maximize our science spend and try to find ways where we can partner with others so that sometimes we're not always just the doers, but we're the funders of science.
Would you be able to speak further to where certain aspects of this research will be done within the private sector or within our colleges and universities in Canada?
So I'll see if Andrew wants to add. I mean, I think some of it will, already we do a lot of our partnered research with the private sector and universities. I think that would be continued, but Andrew, you'd add anything if you'd like.
Yeah, partnerships are a key part of our work, and we've already had discussions and have ongoing discussions with both our industry partners as well as the universities to see what interest they have in our continuing on the work we do.
What are the benefits of streamlining and focusing agricultural research? What have you heard from stakeholders about what they want for the future of agricultural research and to look like?
Thank you for the question. I will say in the lead up to this exercise, one of the things we did consistently hear from stakeholders was a concern that more money was being spent on overhead and not enough on researchers. Now, please do not take that to mean I'm saying that our stakeholders asked us to close down these centers or anything like that. They obviously did not. But what they did say was, that they hoped to see a maximization of science spend and trying to reduce, overhead costs. And admittedly, this is a vehicle to do this. And it is why we think, even though, we know the concern that's out there on these reductions, ultimately it's about saying out of every given dollar, how much are you going to spend of that money to do science and research, and how much of it are you going to spend to do things that allow you to maintain the physical presence to do science and research. And by consolidating, we think we get that split better.
There's not time to answer this, but could you give us more specifics on the Farm Climate Action Fund at some point for the committee?
We are absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, next we'll go to Mr. Lemire for 2.5 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je pense.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's refreshing seeing the position of different members around the table because this is a political aspect to this issue, and there's also administrative consequences. But first of all, I think it is a political decision by the Liberal government. In the budget, you indicated that you had closed certain programs, including the living greenhouses, and I'm wondering what happens to farms who depend on research centers. More concretely, is that putting in peril producers who are currently part of those living laboratories?
Thank you for the question. So the member is quite right that the Living Labs program will be wound down as announced in the budget. I will note a couple of things. The existing 14 projects under the Living Labs are going to continue to the end of their natural and predetermined span. We will have all the data and information and value from that. It's really more of a second wave of the program that won't continue. It was very much meant, and that's why there's a limited number of them and not at scale, to try to learn some additional initial lessons on various kind of science questions. I think they fulfilled that purpose. We're allowing them to go to their end, so we're not leaving anyone in the lurch on those projects.
Selon les comptes publics.
According to public accounts from 2025, you invest in science and in innovation in the AAFC department, $900 million. What guarantees are the either that money will be maintained, or are you going to reduce that amount?
So the reality is that we always have, there's going to be some key decisions made in the future about the next agriculture policy framework. Every department, we have programs that sunset. Some are renewed at a larger amount, some are not. I can't speculate about the future, but again, this has been very clear. This was a specific point in time exercise about reductions to meet a target. We have done that, and now we're moving forward.
The parliamentary budget director indicated that he asked for the savings that would come from cuts by program with information on possible consequences for the levels of service for 2026 to 2030. Can you please confirm that that information was provided, and can you also send a copy to the committee?
Thank you, Chair. So we have provided the parliamentary budget officer with answers to all of the questions that he has submitted to us. I assumed that it was provided to the committee as a matter of course, but we can obviously work with the committee to ensure you have it.
Conservatives, Mr. Barlow, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to share my time with my colleague, Mr. Gord. I just have a couple of very quick questions. Mr. Hansen, I just want to confirm that you said that the budget for research in AAFC was about $300 million. Is that correct? Okay, perfect. Thank you. My colleague was nice enough to talk about the importance of the Climate Action Program, the On-Farm Climate Action Fund, which was announced an additional $300 million to bring it now to $700 million. So you could actually more than double the budget to research if you actually attributed those funds to something that worked. And I want to talk about OFCAF for a second and the Climate Action Program, that the Auditor General last year reassessed or assessed that program. And here's just a couple of her comments.
Mr. Chair, point of order.
No translate.
There is currently no interpretation.
We'll pause for a second while we fix that. We'll take a quick break.
Liberals saying the importance of the Climate Action Fund, which was announced, the Agriculture Minister announced an additional $300 million to that program, bringing it up to $700 million, which would be able to double the research budget and keep these research centers open and doing the good work that they're doing. But the Auditor General audited this program last year, and a couple of the comments that came from that audit: there was no strategy to meet the expected contributions of this program, poor results management, unreliable and incomplete results, performance targets were exaggerated, and yet you are throwing more good money after bad in a program that clearly doesn't work. And last year we talked to every single stakeholder, and they said, which programs would you want to get rid of? And every single one, almost to a person, said OFCAF is one program that can be eliminated to ensure those resources went to programs that actually worked, like the research being done on the ground. Why are you choosing programs that clearly don't work and don't have any metrics to measure their success or unsuccessful, instead of and you're sacrificing the good research that's being done on the ground? Here.
Thank you for the question. So in terms of OFCAF, I will say, first of all, it is important to note that this is resources being provided directly to producers to undertake beneficial management practices on their own farms, and I certainly will never contest what the member has heard from stakeholders. I will say that I do on my own and with the minister visited a number of producers where I've actually heard that their appreciation for the support of OFCAF, including again things that are very useful as in BMPs.
I'm going to keep going. I have another question. Thank you, Deputy Minister. On Agriculture Day, I would like to thank all agricultural producers for putting food on the table. What we're studying today in Saint-Augustin-Léonard in my province, it is a leader on research. That is a research center into hay. It is a foundational element of our agricultural sector, and unfortunately there are cuts being made to this, which is a building block. Why? That could be leading to the problem we're seeing of less steak on our tables. I would like to ask you, where did that order come from to cut into research centers at AAFC department? Who gave you that order?
Thank you, Chair. So when the CER was announced last summer, the department immediately began looking for savings across all of its activities.
D'où vient l'ordre? Est-ce que
Where did the order come from? Was it issued by the government, by the Privy Council office? There was someone who asked you to make the cuts. Who did it? You can give a name or an organization. Who?
Thank you, Chair. It's not a question of a name or organization. We provided advice to the minister based on our best understanding of where reductions could take place and have the most limited negative consequences.
Monsieur le ministre, est-ce que
Mr. Deputy Minister, did the government ask you to make cuts to the Agriculture Department?
Yes, I mean that was the research, that was the whole CER exercise. All departments were asked to find operational savings.
Merci, vous m'avez répondu.
Thank you. You answered my question. Thank you. The government made you make choices. There are millions of dollars for asking F-35s. I was asking you a question. I wanted to finish it. The government chose to invest billions into AI and purchase F-35s, but there were cuts, and the government refused to keep any crumbs for agriculture.
You know, the department was asked to make reductions, but it was, you know, the advice on where to make those reductions came from us. And on.
Can you just stop for a second? We're going to go to Mr. Connors, and someone will ask you the question after, but his time was over by 15 seconds. Mr. Connors?
Yes, so I'm going to go back to that to Mr. Hanson. So the spending review that was undertaken by Agriculture Canada was part of a review that had taken place across all of government. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more, and I'll allow you to answer what you're trying to state there at the beginning?
Yes, thank you. So the concept of the CER itself was government policy to find savings. Each individual department and minister were asked to propose reductions associated with their department. We gave advice to our minister in terms of where we thought those reductions could come in a manner that was as least disruptive as possible. I continue to emphasize that more than half of our cuts came in the form of operational reductions in spending. And I would just draw members' attention to Budget 2025. There is an annex that goes through each department and its individual reductions associated with the CER, including those of Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada.
Mr. Hanson, does the department think or know that the way research is done, agricultural research is done, is changing, and we may have to change our approach to agricultural research?
Thank you. Absolutely. There's new fields of endeavor starting all the time, you know, and it was just mentioned it, so I will mention it. AI actually holds enormous promise for the agriculture sector, and if you look at some of the advancements that the Dutch have made in controlled agriculture environments, there's huge opportunity, and so the answer is yes. And the other thing I guess I'll note is that that's why so much of our research is project-based. Projects begin and projects end, and new ones launch, and it gives us the opportunity to sort of reflect those changes that are ongoing. You know, if you look at the issue of precision agriculture, you know, the technological landscape is changing dramatically, and agriculture has to be part of that change.
So I know you mentioned what's been done in other countries. Australia, I know, is taking a different approach to, and it's based more on industry-led research approach. How's that happening in Canada?
Thank you, Chair. It's a very good question. I mean, I think, and a lot of this has to do with issues, and I think you might be referring to plant breeding, among other things. I think that what we are trying to do and continuing to work toward is a way where there's incentivization for private sector investment in things like crop breeding and so forth, but also ensuring that producers are feeling that they're getting the maximum value from the research that we do through checkoffs and other kind of expenditures that they themselves make.
Just going back, you mentioned, I think in previous statements about the the assets, the buildings and that on the farms. What is the go-forward plan for that? And could any of that be transferred to universities or other research institutes in order to be able to maintain their benefits?
Thank you for the question, Chair. I will turn it over to my colleague Alain, who can speak a bit about this sort of what is a reasonably standardized process for disposal of land and other assets in this kind of instance.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So first and foremost, the winding down of scientific activities is going to be our primary activity over the next 12 months. But after that, we're going to be following a prescribed Treasury Board process of divestiture of real property assets. Basically, we're going to be looking at gathering assessment of property details such as land survey, environmental condition, and then we're going to be engaging in a priority circulation process whereby we are going to be offering the assets first and foremost to government departments, other government departments, and then moving down that list, we go to provincial and territorial governments, and if that doesn't reap success, we go down to municipalities and land claims. The process for land claims or Aboriginal or territorial requirements. So the process is going to be a lengthy one. It's in a matter of years that we do this, and until we divest of the assets, we are still the custodians of the land and the buildings. Thank you.
Any way to confirm that they will stay in agricultural, as agricultural use?
No, not necessarily, Chair. Once we declare land surplus to our needs, it goes through this process and could potentially, be used in other capacities. We can't really speculate on that.
Okay, thank you, sir. We're going to do 4 minutes, 4 minutes, and 2 minutes. So the Conservatives for 4 minutes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just go back to what my colleague had mentioned earlier about the climate funding, On-Farm Climate Action Fund, OCAF. And you said there's $300 million of research. Well, there was just another $300 million announced on top of what was existing already, which is $700 million for a program that no one asked for, nobody wants, and doesn't work. That money could be much better spent on other programs that we have quantifiable data on. And I'll give you a good example of that. We've got the Indian Research Center, which was established in 1887. This is the home of zero till. Zero till has done arguably more for the climate than any other thing in agriculture that's ever been invented. Not only in Canada, it was developed in Canada, Western Canada, in Indian Head, where the main research was done, and it was exported all over the world. It is the main agriculture practice now in Australia, in Russia, Kazakhstan, Eastern Europe. This is the kind of research that we need. How on earth can you justify closing down research centers that provide this kind of research when you're giving $22 million for beans for women's empowerment? You're giving $8.5 million for a cricket factory. I've got a whole list of absolute liberal silliness right here. I can go through this one by one, the millions of dollars that no producer in Canada would be interested in funding. How on earth can you justify closing a research center that's done more for agriculture than probably anything else in Canada that's costing $3.8 million? How can you justify that?
Thank you, Chair. So I'll maybe note a couple just of number points, because off-CAF has come up. So just making the obvious point that the 700 and 300 is a bit, it's important to remember that the 300 is an annual spend. The 700 million for off-CAF, I believe, takes place over 8 years, so it's not a similar annual quantum. I honestly cannot speak to at least some of the programs that you've mentioned. They're not AAFC programs. I will speak on the issue of Aspire.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Hansen, it's again our time, and time is brief, and so I'll get straight to the point. I would like to specifically ask for you to table the net savings, which includes ongoing maintenance costs until land and facilities are disposed. The net savings are what really matter, and I'm not sure that we fully appreciate how trivial the savings are going to be for the magnitude of the negative impact on the research opportunity. To go further, you mentioned the minor minor use pesticide program. It's been difficult, if not impossible, for minor use pesticide programs or products to get certified in Canada because of arbitrary requirements for duplicative testing. And, you know, these products typically developed outside of Canada have such a small market that the producers will, like foreign producers that produce the products, can't justify the additional expense. And so farmers don't get access to these programs, they don't get access to these products, and they'll likely, usually, and traditionally have had an outsized impact. Can you please explain how this capacity is going to be saved? You know, with the closing of the Scott Research Farm, this is on the block. What are farmers going to do?
30 seconds.
Minor use?
Yes, the minor use program is something that is highly important to the agriculture sector, particularly in the horticulture sector. We have maintained all of our personnel related to the minor use program. Yes, there are some testing sites at our location. We will be shifting that to another location to maintain that capacity, and we won't be reducing our capacity on the minor use program.
Thank you. We'll go to the Liberals for 4 minutes. MP Chatel.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much.
To be here. One of the things that the Prime Minister has said is a country that cannot feed itself, feed its people, can have little options. And top of mind is food security, food autonomy. And as we embark into the next phase of the partnership with provinces, we center to that is the importance of science and technology. As the report, the food price report by the Dalhousie University pointed out, many researchers says that, you know, structural and long-term drivers of food inflation is extreme weather event, geopolitical conflicts, energy, and productivity trends. These are things that science and innovation and technology can really change. And so as this committee is studying science and technology in this study, is how the Agriculture Canada can be a key partner with university, with producers, with farmers to embark into the challenges that this report says in order to give Canadian food security.
Merci pour la question, merci le membre.
Thank you for the question.
I think one of the key things that we need to be thinking about in the next policy framework is the resilience of the sector, the adaptability. You know, so much of the expenses in the agriculture sector are coming in the form of extreme weather events over which producers obviously have no control. And so one of the, I think, areas of emphasis in the next framework ought to be on this very issue of climate resilience, you know, both to help protect the investments and the activities of producers, but also for these food security concerns.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, there's a lot of chatter.
Yes, I've noticed that. Folks,
yeah.
you know, we're pretty, people obviously have to have conversations, but please keep your voices down because it's hard to hear the speaker. Continue.
Thank you. And j'aimerais aussi savoir.
I would also like to know, what are the discussions that have begun for the upcoming consultation? I had the pleasure of meeting a number of stakeholders in a first round, and what I'm hearing from producers and producer associations, but also from processors, is really, as you noted, climate resilience and also geopolitical conflicts and those challenges. So what are you starting to hear in those consultations from stakeholders?
Thank you for the question. You know, and we really have only just begun the formal consultations, but I would say the things we are hearing most is, you know, the government needs to be working with provinces and territories to think about the next policy framework in the context of being able to grow the sector, to be able to strengthen our capacity to trade, and again, these resilience issues. And again, that's a very unscientific sampling. We've just started the process, but those are certainly messages we're hearing a lot.
On parle de l'importance de la...
We talk about the importance of innovation and science, but in your expenditure reduction exercise, did you cut services and supports to agriculture producers?
Neither the SCAP funding was reduced, nor did it have an impact on the business risk management suite. And in fact, those have actually increased as a result of a higher payment rate for agri-stability and an increased interest-free component under the advanced payments program.
For the Bloc Québécois, Mr. Lemire, 2 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure that you are going to provide us in written form the impact of the analysis on research centers, if that was carried out, and also the amounts invested in each centers and broken down in between research and innovation and the pay for administrative employees and researchers. I asked you that at the end of my first turn, but there wasn't enough time for you to answer. Do you commit to submitting that to the committee?
We will. We can provide the financial information on costs associated with centers, and in terms of like our own analysis. We will provide information about how we're seeking to address any limitations coming from the reductions.
Merci. Merci. Donc, je veux nommer.
Thank you. In 2016, the former Ag Minister, Lawrence Macaulay, had reopened an experimental farm in Freelersburg. In 2019, he opened an experimental farm in Kentville. However, he announced $4 million investments in another experimental farm, and that is why we're surprised to see such a shift in direction from the Liberals, who are now deciding to do without science. I wouldn't include all Liberals in this. OECD country report that Canada invested much more in research than other countries. Many countries use agriculture as a military expenditure to be able to feed one's people on its own territory. Do you think that agriculture spending could be considered military spending?
Thank you. I will. Thank you, Chair. I will say I would not share the characterization of this as walking away from science. As I've indicated, less than roughly 7% of our research scientists, 7% are not either getting getting an offer to move to another job. In terms of dual use and things like that, I confess I am not an expert on this, so I will be very careful in my response. I can imagine there are certain kind of technologies that are useful for both defense and agriculture. Remote sensing strikes me as one, Earth observation as another, but I would not presume to have any expertise on what does or doesn't count toward a defense expenditure.
Thank you very much.
Merci.
And,
thank you.
Deputy Minister, thank you for your time and to your team for joining us here today. Is there a will to adjourn the meeting? Yeah, okay. Meeting adjourned.